I reported my boss for embezzlement. He fired me, and now he's suing me for defamation. 2 weeks ago, I thought I was doing the right thing. Now I'm unemployed, broke, and being sued by the men who actually committed the crime. He was stealing from the company, I had proof. I went to HR thinking they'd protect me. Instead, they protected him. By the end of that week, I was walked out of the building like a criminal. I'm posting here because I honestly don't know what else to do. I've never been this scared, or this angry. I want justice, but it feels like he has all the power. I need advice from people who've been in situations where the truth isn't enough. Has anyone else gone up against someone way more powerful? Did you win? Did it ruin you? Be honest. I can take it. I think. So, I, 29M, used to work at a mid-sized marketing firm in the Pacific Northwest. Not a startup, but not some monolithic corporation either, maybe 150 people tops. I worked in finance, nothing glamorous, but I liked the numbers. I liked the order. It made sense to me. I also liked my boss. At first. His name is Kevin, not his real name, obviously. Late 40s, slick in the way that makes older guys seem cool instead of creepy. He'd take the team out for drinks on Fridays, tell stories about the good old days in ad sales, call everyone rockstar or champ. I'll admit it, I admired the guy. He seemed like he'd made it. Then one day I noticed something weird. It started with a vendor invoice that didn't line up. Just a few $100 off, easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. I flagged it, thinking maybe someone fat-fingered an entry. But when I followed up, Kevin waved it off like it was nothing. Rounding error, he said, without even looking at the screen. Fine. Could be. But something felt off. Over the next month, I started noticing more of these errors. Vendor payments being padded. Expense reports with sketchy charges, private car services, hotel rooms on weekends, meals that didn't match the trip logs. And all of it signed off by Kevin. I didn't want to believe it at first. I thought maybe I was being paranoid or too green to understand how the sausage gets made. But the numbers kept piling up. So I did what I thought you were supposed to do. I documented everything. Quietly. I set up a private spreadsheet, took screenshots, backed up emails to my personal Google Drive. I didn't tell anyone, not even my girlfriend, Sarah, 31F, because I didn't want to drag her into it unless I had to. After about 6 weeks, I had what I thought was a solid case. Over $85,000 in suspicious charges tied directly to Kevin's accounts, all spread across 6 months. And the thing that finally pushed me over the edge? He submitted a reimbursement for a client dinner that I attended. Except I didn't. No one did. It never happened. That same night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling for hours, running through all the ways this could backfire. What if I was wrong? What if I lost my job? But I kept coming back to one thing, I couldn't just let it go. So I went to HR. I scheduled a quiet meeting with the director, Janine, who had always struck me as fair and even-keeled. I showed her my findings. Walked her through everything. She didn't say much, just kept nodding and taking notes. I remember her saying, "This is serious, we'll need to look into it immediately." I left that meeting feeling anxious but also relieved. Like I'd finally passed the burden to someone who could do something about it. 3 days later, I was called into a conference room with Kevin and Janine. He smiled at me like I was a child who'd misbehaved. Janine had a legal pad in front of her. She said, "We've reviewed your claims, and unfortunately, we found no evidence of misconduct." I just sat there, blinking. Kevin leaned forward, hands steepled. "We value loyalty here. But we can't have people making baseless accusations. It undermines the team." I opened my mouth to respond, but he cut me off. "We've decided to terminate your employment, effective immediately." I was stunned. Numb. I remember walking out of that room thinking it had to be some kind of mistake. That someone, anyone, would stop me before I got to the elevator and say, "Hey, actually, this isn't happening. This is a misunderstanding." But no one did. Security escorted me out. They gave me a thin manila envelope with my final paycheck and a generic termination for cause notice. My keycard stopped working before I hit the parking garage. I sat in my car for over an hour, staring at the steering wheel. I told Sarah that night. She was furious. Not just at them, but at me, too. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she asked. "I could have helped you. We could have planned." She wasn't wrong. That weekend was rough. I went from steady job and clean conscience to unemployed and doubting my own memory. Was it embezzlement? Was it fraud? Did I overreact? But then, on Monday morning, I got served. Kevin is suing me for defamation. He claims I made false, malicious accusations that damaged his professional reputation. I don't even know how he got my new address, I'm assuming from HR. The guy is suing me, and he's still sitting in the same office, collecting a paycheck. I haven't told my parents yet. I can't bring myself to. My dad's the old school, keep your head down and do your job, type. If he finds out I blew the whistle and got canned, he'll just say, "Told you not to rock the boat." I don't know what to do next. I've never been sued before. I don't have the money for a lawyer. My savings were for an engagement ring, not a legal defense. And worst of all, there's this voice in my head that keeps asking, was it even worth it? I've been sleeping like crap. Even when I do manage to drift off, I dream about weird stuff, being dragged into court in my boxers, or sitting in a meeting room full of Kevins, all of them smiling that smug smile of his. Sarah says I've started grinding my teeth in my sleep. I believe her. My jaw hurts all the time now. So anyway, back to the lawsuit. The document said I had 21 days to respond or he could get a default judgment. I didn't even know what that meant. I spent hours doom-scrolling Reddit and legal forums until my brain felt like melted cheese. One user in our /legal advice suggested I talk to a local legal aid nonprofit, which honestly hadn't even crossed my mind. I guess I thought they were just for people way worse off than me. But I called. And thank God I did. They couldn't take my case outright, but one of the volunteer attorneys, let's call her Laura, offered to walk me through how to file a response myself and gave me a few resources. She also said something that stuck with me: truth is a defense to defamation. I clung to that like a lifeline. Truth is a defense. I wasn't making it up. I wasn't exaggerating. I had receipts, literally. Screenshots. Spreadsheets. Emails. Backup logs from the accounting software. I'd been so scared I'd done something wrong that I forgot I had the goddamn truth. I asked Laura if I could countersue or go to the police. She said, let's focus on not getting crushed first. Then we can talk offense. Fair. So I filed my response. Pro-SE scariest trip to the courthouse of my life. It was this beige building with peeling linoleum tiles and a security guard who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I stood in line behind a woman arguing with the clerk about a parking ticket and a guy wearing a tank top that said, FBI, Female Body Inspector. Not exactly suits. When I handed over my paperwork, the clerk gave me a look that was half pity, half curiosity. I must have looked like hell. But here's the kicker. The day after I filed my response, Kevin's lawyer sent a settlement offer. It was 2 pages of legalese, but the gist was, if I signed a document saying I retract and disavow all claims of wrongdoing, they'd drop the lawsuit. No damages, no further action, just sign and shut up. I didn't even need Laura to translate that one. It was a threat wrapped in a handshake. They were trying to get me to admit I lied, without ever having to prove that I did. I read the line about agreeing not to make future disparaging statements about Kevin and felt my stomach drop. It wasn't just about me anymore. If I signed this, I'd be helping them bury the truth. And I couldn't do that. Sarah and I had a long, hard conversation that night. She's been amazing, by the way, angry, yes, but solid. She said, if you sign that paper, it's over. You'll carry it forever. You'll have done the right thing and still lost. She wasn't wrong. But she also asked something else. Something that's been echoing in my head ever since. What's your line, babe? Like, how far are you willing to go? And I didn't know how to answer that. I've always been the good employee. Show up early, stay late, fix other people's math mistakes, don't make waves. This whole situation has scrambled my identity. I didn't ask to be a whistleblower. I just saw numbers that didn't add up and decided to follow the math. I didn't expect to be here. I used to think the world was more black and white. That if you did the right thing, someone, HR, the law, karma, would have your back. But I'm starting to see how naive that was. Systems don't protect people. People protect people. And if they're too scared or corrupt to do it, then the system eats you alive. I told Kevin's lawyer to go to hell. Okay, not literally. I sent a short email that said I rejected the offer and stood by my statements. But I thought go to hell very loudly while typing it. That was a week ago. I haven't heard back yet. In the meantime, I've started talking to a couple journalists. I know that's risky, but I'm desperate. I can't let this just get swept under the rug. I'm being careful, no confidential company info, just telling my side, and only to reputable folks who agreed to keep things off the record for now. I'm also trying to find other former employees who might have seen the same things I did. There was a woman in marketing, Jessie, who left suddenly about 6 months ago. I remember she and Kevin had a closed-door meeting the week before she quit, and she looked wrecked coming out of it. I sent her a message on LinkedIn last night. Fingers crossed. And I've started applying for jobs again, which feels weird. It's hard to sit through interviews pretending everything's normal when you know there's a legal landmine under your chair. I keep wondering if Kevin will try to poison the well with future employers. But I can't hide forever. Sarah says this could be the beginning of something better. I'm trying to believe her. Some days I do. Other days I just feel like a guy with a target on his back, yelling into the void. Anyway, that's where things stand. I'm still standing. Still fighting. Still broke, still angry, but maybe a little less alone. If you've been through something like this, I'd love to hear how it turned out. And if you've got advice, legal or otherwise, I'm all ears. Update 1. Wow. I did not expect this much attention. I was just venting into the void, but instead, I got hundreds of messages, DMs, and comments, some supportive, some skeptical, a few straight up brutal. But I read every single one. So thank you. Even the tough love stuff. Especially that. A lot of you said I was being too soft. That I should have lawyered up earlier. That I shouldn't have trusted HR for even a second. That I should have gone scorched earth from the jump. You're probably right. But when this started, I wasn't thinking like a fighter. I was thinking like a guy who just wanted to fix a broken thing. I wasn't ready for war. Now. I'm learning. So here's what's happened since I posted. First, I heard back from Jessie, the ex-marketing employee I mentioned. She agreed to a phone call, and, holy hell. She had a lot to say. Turns out, Kevin didn't just fake dinner receipts and fudge vendor invoices. He also pulled some shady stuff with performance bonuses, basically reallocating team bonuses to pad his own numbers. Jessie says she confronted him directly after she realized her team's Q4 bonuses were lower than promised. His response? Gaslight her. Told her she misunderstood the numbers. She pushed back. A week later, she was restructured out of the company. Sound familiar? She said she felt like no one would believe her, so she just left. Didn't want to fight. But when I told her what I'd found, when I explained that he's suing me for telling the truth, her whole tone changed. She sent me her documentation. Memos, emails, spreadsheets. It lines up with mine. We're planning to go public together, maybe an anonymous op-ed, or at least sharing our story with a journalist. More on that soon. Second, I got an email from a guy named Marcus. He used to work in sales at the company, quit last year. Said he'd been following my Reddit post and recognized the story. He claims he was pressured into signing off on inflated numbers for investor reports. He's scared to go public, but he said, if this goes to court and I get subpoenaed, I'll back you up. This is turning into something bigger than just me. And honestly, that terrifies me. I thought this was going to be a one-man fight for dignity. Now it feels like I'm assembling a case against Goliath, and the sling I'm holding is made of duct tape and panic. But here's the third thing, and it's a big one. That journalist I mentioned earlier. The one I was talking to off the record. They called me yesterday to say their editor is greenlighting an investigative piece. They're digging into the company, Kevin, HR, everything. They've already submitted FOIA requests and are talking to other ex-employees. I'm going to be quoted anonymously. I don't know what kind of fallout that'll bring, but for the first time in weeks, I feel like maybe the truth is going to see daylight. Also, I finally told my parents. That was rough. My dad, predictably, said, "You should have kept your head down." But my mom surprised me. She said, "Doing the right thing doesn't always feel good. But it's still the right thing." That meant more to me than I expected. Sarah's been my rock through this, but hearing my mom back me up, after weeks of feeling like I might be the crazy one, gave me a second wind. I think I needed it. Financially, we're still scraping by. I took a temp job doing bookkeeping for a local nonprofit. It's not glamorous, but it pays enough to keep us afloat. No benefits, though, so I'm holding my breath every time I sneeze. Also, I found a lawyer. Not a big firm, not fancy, but a solo practitioner who specializes in employee whistleblower cases. He offered to take me on with a flexible payment plan after reading some of the materials I've collected. He said, and I quote, "You've got a hell of a paper trail. This guy's sloppy." Music to my ears. So now, we're working on a formal countersuit, not just to fight the defamation claim, but to pursue a wrongful termination and whistleblower retaliation case. It's going to be a grind. Probably months. Maybe longer. But for once, I don't feel like I'm swinging blind. I feel like I've got people in my corner now. Anyway, I'll keep you all posted. And seriously, thank you for being here. Even the snarky ones. Reddit might be full of chaos, but at least it's honest chaos. Let me know if you want updates on the journalist story or how the legal stuff unfolds. This ride's far from over. Update 2. It's been 3 weeks since my last update, and things have escalated in ways I didn't expect, both good and bad. I'm still in the middle of it, still stressed out of my mind, but also starting to see a pattern. Every time something feels like rock bottom, something else breaks open and shows me that I haven't hit the end yet. Either in a good way or a much worse one. Let's start with the bombshell. The journalist I was working with. They published the piece. Front page of the local Sunday edition. Big headline. Kevin's name. The company's name. Words like financial misconduct, unverified expense claims, and terminated whistleblower employee alleges retaliation. That last one is me. They quoted me anonymously, like we agreed, but anyone who worked there and knows the story would be able to connect the dots. They also interviewed Jesse, also anonymous, and hinted at a pattern of internal silencing that goes back years. I bought 3 copies and spread them out on the kitchen table like it was Christmas morning and I was about to unwrap vindication. Then my phone started ringing. Not just friends or former co-workers, but reporters. Lawyers. One guy claimed to be making a documentary on corporate fraud and wanted to record a testimonial. It was overwhelming. Sarah confiscated my phone at one point because I couldn't stop doom scrolling through Twitter threads. Yes, the story made Twitter. Some finance blogger picked it up and it started spreading in niche corners of the internet. But here's the downside. Kevin filed an amended complaint the next day. He's now accusing me of coordinated defamation and reputational sabotage. According to his lawyer, my involvement in the article shows clear and malicious intent to cause harm to Mr. Kevin's personal and professional reputation. He's asking for damages in excess of $250,000. That number hit me like a truck. I laughed, then I cried, then I laughed again, because how the hell can someone steal from a company, fire the guy who catches him, sue that guy, and then say he's the victim? But that's where we are. My lawyer, let's call him Dan, isn't sweating it too hard. He said it's a scare tactic. That now that the article is out there and corroborated by a second employee, it's actually Kevin who's looking more exposed. He also mentioned that discovery could be our best weapon. Dan, if they really want to go to trial, they'll have to open their books. Me, do you think they're dumb enough to let that happen? Dan, if he's suing you after that article dropped. Yes. Yes, I do. So now we're preparing to go on offense. Dan filed a motion to dismiss the amended complaint and is drafting a countersuit with more teeth in it. We're adding constructive dismissal, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and something called tortious interference with prospective employment. Basically, Kevin has allegedly been calling companies where I've applied and hinting that I'm under legal scrutiny or a known liability. I only found out because a recruiter at a tech firm, who I crushed my final interview with, called to politely withdraw their offer based on concerns raised by a professional contact. She wouldn't say who. But I only listed one former employer. You do the math. Sarah said, let's burn it all down. I've never loved her more. Emotionally, I'm all over the place. Some days I feel like David about to take down Goliath. Other days, I feel like a mosquito trying to bite a brick wall. I keep second-guessing myself. Maybe if I'd just kept quiet, I'd still have a job. Maybe if I'd waited for someone else to say something, I wouldn't be here. But then I read comments from people on Reddit, or messages from ex-co-workers saying thank you for speaking up, and it steadies me again. Not perfectly. But enough. Also, one more twist. Last Friday, I got a call from a state investigator. The article triggered a preliminary inquiry by the State Department of Labor. They're reviewing the case to see if there's grounds for a formal investigation into corporate misconduct. It's early stages, but the woman I spoke with said, what you reported lines up with similar cases we've pursued. So yeah. This thing's getting bigger. But that means Kevin's going to fight even harder. And I have no illusions, he has money, power, and a deeply loyal executive circle that either believes his version or is too scared to cross him. I'm just one guy with a box of receipts, a pissed-off girlfriend, and a lawyer who eats instant noodles in his office. But I'm not backing down. For those of you who messaged asking how to protect yourselves if you're in a similar situation, document everything. Save emails. Screenshot approvals. Backup files to personal storage before you make any noise. HR doesn't work for you. They work for the company. Assume they'll throw you under the bus if it keeps things quiet. And for those of you asking, is it worth it? I don't know yet. Maybe ask me after court. But here's what I do know, I can look in the mirror and not feel like a coward. That's worth something. I'll post again when the legal stuff develops more or if we go to trial. Or if Kevin spontaneously combusts. A guy can dream. Update 3. Okay. Buckle up. Because this is the one. I didn't expect to be back so soon, but something happened this week that flipped everything upside down. I'm still trying to process it, but I couldn't sit on it. Not after everything you guys have been through with me. We got a whistleblower bombshell. Not from me. Not from Jesse. From inside the company, a current employee. Late Monday night, I got an email from a burner account. Subject line, they're scared. You're winning. That alone sent my heart into my throat. I opened it, expecting maybe some vague encouragement or another anonymous tip, but what I found was way more than that. They attached a PDF. A scan of what looks like a company memo marked, confidential, internal use only. It's a transcript of an emergency board meeting held 2 days after the newspaper article dropped. Kevin's name comes up 12 times in the first 2 pages. They're clearly panicking. The board is exploring leadership transition options. One exec openly suggests putting Kevin on administrative leave pending internal review. Another flat out says they should have handled the whistleblower more delicately, and there's a direct quote from the CFO admitting that some documentation discrepancies were flagged as early as Q3 of last year. I reread that line 5 times, just to be sure. They knew. They freaking knew. And they did nothing. Worse, they let him fire me. My hands were shaking when I forwarded the memo to Dan, my lawyer. He called me 15 minutes later, and the first thing he said was, "You realize this is dynamite, right?" He thinks we can now subpoena internal communications with legitimate cause, and possibly even trigger a court order for discovery on board-level emails. If what's in this memo holds up, it means the company can't claim they had no knowledge of wrongdoing. They weren't just negligent. They were complicit. And Kevin. He's radioactive now. 2 days later, boom, he's suddenly on temporary personal leave, according to an internal memo that leaked online. His LinkedIn still says CEO, but the company bio now lists an interim executive director. It's all wrapped in PR speak about restructuring and refocusing on core values, but it doesn't take a genius to read between the lines. He's gone. Or at least, going. And the cherry on top. The same recruiter who ghosted me a few weeks ago after I mentioned my legal situation reached back out. She said the company is revisiting candidates, and she wanted to know if I was still interested. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. After some back and forth, and a very cautious tone from me, she admitted off the record that someone from my old company had made unsolicited negative statements about me. But after the article, and the news of Kevin's departure, her team reassessed the risk. Reassessed the risk. Like I'm some kind of stock option. But whatever. I'm not mad. I mean, I am, but I'm also vindicated. That's the word that keeps ringing in my head. Vindicated. This all feels like it's building towards something huge. I can't confirm it yet, but I've heard from two people, one in compliance, one in HR, that the Department of Labor is ramping up their inquiry into a formal investigation. Not just about Kevin, but the company as a whole. Word is spreading. And there's a part of me, a growing part, that wants to go public. Not just anonymous interviews. I mean putting my name to this. Standing in front of a camera and saying, yeah, I said it. And I was right. But it's scary. There's still a lawsuit hanging over my head. Kevin may be circling the drain, but until his legal team formally withdraws, I'm still in this fight. Dan says we have a strong case now, stronger than ever. He's even considering pushing for punitive damages. Meanwhile, Sarah is planning a weekend getaway for us. Just 2 days. Somewhere quiet. She says I need to breathe again. She's right. This whole ordeal has changed me. I feel more awake, somehow. Like a fog has lifted. I see how fragile security really is. How thin the line is between being respected and being discarded. But I also see how powerful it is to stand up and say, no more. I'll probably never go back to being the quiet guy who kept his head down and ran the numbers without asking questions. And I think I'm okay with that. I'll leave you with this. If you're sitting at a desk right now, staring at a spreadsheet that doesn't make sense, wondering if it's worth it to speak up, remember this post. Remember me. It might be terrifying. It might get you fired. You might get sued. But you might also find your voice. And once you do, they can't take it away. Final update. Well, here we are. The end of the road, or at least, the end of this road. I wish I could say everything tied up into a perfect little bow. It didn't. Life doesn't work that way. But it did come full circle in a way I never expected. So for those of you who've been following since the first post, who sent advice, encouragement, tough love, legal insights, and even memes, you people are savage and I love it, this one's for you. Let me walk you through what happened. About a month after Kevin stepped away, the company formally announced his resignation. No press conference, no dramatic apology, just a sterile press release with the usual buzzwords, vision, leadership change, new chapter. He's already wiped his LinkedIn clean, and last I heard, he's consulting for a boutique VC firm in another state. But here's the thing, his lawsuit against me. Dropped. No public statement. No settlement offer. Just a bland, 2-sentence notice from his legal team, officially withdrawing the defamation claim. I guess once the investigative report dropped, once the board meetings leaked, once the state launched its probe, his position was no longer defensible. Dan, my lawyer, called me the minute he got the notification. He didn't even say hello. He just went, we ing did it. I laughed so hard I cried. After that, we filed to dismiss with prejudice, meaning Kevin can't refile again later. Dan also pushed for partial reimbursement of legal fees, and after some back and forth, Kevin's side agreed to pay a portion. Not much. Not even enough to cover all of it. But enough to feel like I didn't walk away empty-handed. But that's not even the biggest news. The Department of Labor made it official, they're investigating the company. I can't talk about it in detail, since I'm a cooperating witness now, but let's just say they're not messing around. I had to go into an actual government office with folders and USB drives and swear under oath. They've interviewed multiple employees, past and present, and they're even looking into the firm's investor reports. Apparently, the same fudged numbers Kevin used for internal bonuses may have been sent to investors. That turns this into something way bigger: securities fraud. And now, people are listening. I've had job offers come in, not a flood, but steady, genuine interest. The irony is that getting fired made me more visible, not less. I'm now that guy who stood up. One tech nonprofit even offered me a speaking gig to talk about corporate ethics. I said no for now, but the fact they asked still blows my mind. The recruiter from before? The one who ghosted me, then circled back. I politely declined the offer. Didn't feel right. I didn't want to start somewhere that only valued me after the tide turned. I want to be somewhere that values character before the headlines hit. Which brings me to this. Last week, I accepted a full-time role at a small but growing analytics firm. Run by a woman who read the article, reached out directly, and said, "We need someone like you." It's not flashy, but it's honest. And that's all I want right now. As for Sarah, she stuck with me through every step of this mess. She watched me unravel, rage, crash, then rebuild. And last night, over takeout Thai on our crappy IKEA couch, she looked at me and said, "You're not the same person you were a year ago. And I like this version better." I think I do too. I'm not as naive. Not as eager to please. But I'm stronger. Calmer. I've learned how to pick my battles, and when to fight with everything I've got. So what's the lesson here? Maybe it's this: doing the right thing doesn't protect you. It doesn't pay your rent or guarantee justice. But it does show you who you are when the mask comes off. And if you can live with that guy, if you can look him in the eye in the mirror every morning, then maybe that's worth more than a steady paycheck or a LinkedIn title. Reddit, thanks for being with me through this wild, infuriating, exhausting ride. I'll still be around. Lurking. Maybe even chiming in on someone else's post about a shady boss or a spineless HR rep. But as far as my story goes, that chapter's closed.